Hi crafty friends, I'm Melissa Minor and I'm here with my very first layout for the Shimmerz Paints Design Team. I'm using the August Color Kits and I do have an unboxing video I will link down below in the description box. So when I saw these papers, I absolutely fell in love with the watermelon papers. So I decided to use my Cricut and I found something in Cricut Design Space and I decided to cut out a watermelon. So I'm going to use that on my layout today. I'm going to set that aside and I'm going to work on a few things that I want to use on my layout. I'm going to do some painting, and so I've cut out a title, one in a melon, and also some watermelon vines, and I've put them down to a sticky mat. And the first thing I'm doing is I'm using the Shimmerz Jilted Jade. Now with Shimmerz, it's already a liquid. It's a water-based paint with high shimmer. So I think this is going to look really pretty for some vines that are going to be trickling down my watermelon. Now once you get done painting and you have it on the sticky mat, I recommend lifting it off right away because sometimes that paint almost acts like a glue and it's really hard to get off your mat if you don't take it off right away. So I'm going to take it off here and set it on my glass mat just to let it dry. Now I'm going to start working on my title piece, and my title is One in a Melon, and I'm using the Creamies Trippin' in the Tropics. Now a Creamies has a satin color, and you just spray a little bit of water in the Creamies and let it sit for a moment, and then you're able to paint with it. So I am being sure to paint in the One in a Melon. Now I'm drawing a little line here on my title because I want to paint the bottom section of the O, or the watermelon there, in the Jilted Jade color. So I'm leaving that white for just a moment, but I will come in with a smaller brush and get that taken care of. So I'm just wiping this up, making sure that I get good coverage on this title. And isn't that looking good? All right, so I have some fun pictures that I'm going to scrapbook today. My boyfriend Dale and I went to St. Charles, Missouri, and we went to the Riverwalk and they had a watermelon eating competition. So I have those photos just from earlier this summer that I thought would be perfect for this watermelon paper. Here you can see I'm taking a smaller brush, a detail brush, and I'm just going in along the bottom of the O and using a little bit of that Jilted Jade Shimmerz to just color that portion in. And there we go. All right, so I'm going to set that aside to dry and I'm going to start working on my background. So I'm taking my watermelon piece that I cut from my Cricut and I'm just going to outline that with a pencil, and I'm going to start working on my background. Now I've cut this piece down to 11.5 by 11.5. And it is watercolor cardstock, so it's going to hold my water. So I spritzed it with a little bit of water, and at first I started using my paintbrush and using the Shimmerz Jilted Jade. But then you'll see here that I grabbed a piece of the packaging, and I want to use the packaging technique. Now for the packaging technique, you can either put your paint down on your paper, or you can put it directly on the packaging and smoosh it around on your page. And so that's what I'm doing here. I'm going all along the outside of my watermelon with the Jilted Jade, and I'm making a background here. So I'm just getting some good coverage, smooshing that all around, going back in with my paintbrush in a few areas. Now I think that the top portion has a little too much color, so I'm coming in with a paper towel and a little more water just to thin that out, blot that up just a little bit. Until I get it the desired color that I'm looking for. So that's looking really good. The next thing I want to do, I add a little bit more here to the bottom, but then I'm going to come in and do some splatters. So for splatters, I'm going to dip my paintbrush back into my paint, have a little water on there, and then I'm just going to tap it. I usually like to use my scissors or another paintbrush, whatever is close by, to just tap that paint and leave some splatters. So I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to come back in and do some more intentional splatters, and those will be just with my paintbrush. Now I did use my heat tool and dry this, and you can see here when I dried it, it kind of warped my page. Now to prevent the warping, what you can do is you can place your background into a cover sheet here and run it through a laminator. Now this is just a super cheap laminator that I picked up off of Amazon, but I do have it in the heat setting and I'm running it through quickly. And that's just gonna flatten out my background sheet so that it doesn't look warped any longer. So I love using this, and you might have heard people talk about it before, but I don't know that very many people show. All right, so here you can see it just came out of the laminator, and you see how flat that is? That looks so much better. I think it's worth it to take the time to do that extra step. Now I'm also using a distressing tool here to distress the edges of my 11.5 by 11.5 piece. And you can see underneath there that I gutted the watermelon paper and I added that to a sheet of white cardstock. All right, so I have my background piece adhered down, and now I'm gonna bring in my watermelon. Now, anytime you're adhering items to a mixed media background, you can use your tape runner, but then that's gonna adhere it temporarily. You're gonna need to use an additional glue. You're gonna need to come in with a liquid glue if you want it to stay forever. And I definitely want this layout to stay forever. All right, so after looking at it, I decided that I wanted to add some more color to my background. So here I'm coming in with the Creamies Trippin' in the Tropics that came in the August color kits this month. And I'm just adding a little bit around the edges of my watermelon. And I really think that this looks like the juices of the watermelon. And you know how the juice of the watermelon isn't like perfectly red. It's kind of mixed a little bit. And so I think that this looks just like the juice of a watermelon. So I'm gonna put this Creamies Trippin' in the Tropics in 3 intentional places along my layout here. So I have the upper left, the upper right, and then I'm coming in the bottom right just to add a little bit more. So I love the way that that looks. I'm also going to come in and do some splatters with that same color. Now for my splatters, I want them to be very tiny. And so I'm going to switch paintbrushes and use a smaller paintbrush to do that. Once I get this Trippin' in the Tropics, the color that I want. Okay, so I have that the color I'd like. And now I have that smaller detail brush and I'm making those small splatters in those 3 areas, those 3 clusters of the Trippin' in the Tropics, the pink color. So I'm adding those splatters. And I know it's kind of hard to see on camera, but in person you can really see that. And in the end and in the close-ups, you'll be able to see those splatters. All right, so I set that aside to dry and I decided that the color wasn't quite rich enough. And so I want to go back over the area here. I thought it was not underneath the watermelon enough. So I'm going in just along the edges and adding a little bit more color. And I'm also adding a layer of that Trippin' in the Tropics right over the layer that I had. Again, I had set this aside to dry first. And so that will allow me to build the color to get the desired color that I want. And so you can see here, it does add a richer color, like a richer pink color here. So I'm going to do that in all 3 of the clusters again, and being sure to get right up under the watermelon because it would look kind of funny if I had like a white space coming out from the watermelon, because I want it to look like it's watermelon juices just gushing out from this watermelon. So I think that adding this additional layer of color adds a lot of detail to the finished layout. So that's looking good. All right. So I'm going to set that aside to dry. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to working on my title. All right. All right, so here's my title. And it did dry, so I'm going to add on my top layer that is in the white. So I'm adding a little bit of liquid glue all around my title, and I'm gonna layer it on top of the one in a melon. So we'll just add some glue, and then we're gonna give it a good press. I'm being sure to get on every single letter because I want this to adhere. And especially after it's, you know, on the paint, you need to make sure that you have lots of glue. Oh, one thing I failed to mention is that I did use mixed media paper when I cut this out with my Cricut so that it would hold the color really well. And when you do that, you need to add I recommend adding your Cricut setting to, I think it's poster board. So you want it on like the thickest setting so that it will cut. If you don't, then it's not gonna cut all the way through your thick mixed media paper. Now, at first I thought I was gonna splatter on some black. So I brought in Shimmerz in the coal color. Now this one didn't come in the August kit. I pulled this one from my stash. If you don't have coal, it's a good black. It's good to have. But I just wanted to add a little bit of detail here. So I'm using a small brush and I'm adding a little bit of the coal Shimmerz to make it look like watermelon seeds in that title. Okay, so here's my pictures that I was telling you about. It's my boyfriend Dale and I on the left. And then these other 3 pictures off camera, I did kind of cut them and glue them together so they would easily go onto my layout. I fussed with them for quite a while. But these are the people that were in the watermelon competition. And I don't know if you can see the upper right-hand photo. I mean, these people were serious. I joked around with my boyfriend that we should enter the watermelon eating competition. I thought they might give you like a plate and you eat it and you see how fast you eat it. Oh no. These people could not use their hands and they just put their whole head, their whole face into the watermelon, and they were going crazy. They were in it to win it. So it was quite interesting to watch. All right, I want to add a little bit of foam. So this is just some generic fun foam. Then I'm going to add it to the back of our photo because that is my focal photo and I want that to be popped up. I am also going to add some foam to my title, but I'm just setting it there for placement so that I know where to stick my photo. So I'm adding some wet glue here and I'm getting this stuck down. So I'm able to get 4 photos onto this layout. And then the photo that is over to the right of Dale and I don't know his name, but that was a singer. And they were playing some music at this competition. And I like bringing in photos like that because it really just sets the tone or reminds me of the atmosphere. So it helps me remember the music and I remember the food, and you know, it really just helps me remember all the details of the day. So there's the vines that I had cut out and painted, and I love how they have that shimmery goodness all over them. So they are shining. And so here I'm taking some foam strips. I believe these are 1/8 in size. And I thought it would be easier to use these strips just to place on the back of the leaves. And so off camera, I went ahead and peeled the release papers, and I'm gonna have these trickling down onto the watermelon. Now, if you look up a picture of a watermelon, there's actually little yellow or almost like orangey colored flowers that are on watermelon vines. I've never seen one in person, but that's what they look like. And so I'm taking one of the papers that came in the kit and I fussy cut some of the flowers, and I think that this really mimics like the watermelon vine photos. So I put some foam tape on the back, and you can see here I'm kind of ruffling them up with my fingers just to give them a little extra added dimension. And I'm making 3 clusters with these flowers. So I have some at the top of the vines. I'm going to have some in this upper right. And then I'm also going to add a couple to the lower left of my photo and kind of nestled in with the title. And that way it just connects the title to the layout. I don't like to have my titles just kind of hanging out all by themselves. And so I think by adding a couple flowers down here, that's really going to tie my title into my layout. Now off camera, I also brought in one of the pieces of ephemera that looks like one of these flowers. It matches, and so I add that also right here to the left of this photo in this cluster. So you'll see that I just did that off camera. And now I am adding some gems. Now these are from Buttons Galore and More, just some little flat pearls. And I'm adding some of like the orange color and some of the yellow color. And I'm adding those to the center of the flowers. And I think that that really gives some extra detail to the layout. I love the way this layout is looking. There's so much to look at. There's so many details. I love the mixed media on it. I just love everything about it. Okay, so I have those, and then off camera, I added some little green gems in the 3 clusters as well. Here I'm taking a ruler and a black Sharpie, a thin black Sharpie, and I'm just drawing some journaling lines. Now I have my journaling here, and it says, "We had so much fun at the St. Charles Riverwalk watermelon eating competition." And now I'm practicing with my date stamp, and I'm stamping July 13th, 2024. So that's going to wrap up my layout today. I hope you've enjoyed my first layout. If so, please go ahead and hit that thumbs up button. And if you're not already a subscriber, I hope you'll subscribe. I will leave links down below in the description box to the Shimmerz website. And please leave my name in the comments of your order, and you could receive that free gift. Thanks so much, and I'll catch you in the next video. Bye!